Shinran's Teaching, Practice, and Realization is divided into 6 chapters. Preface, Chapter 1, Teaching, Chapter 2, Practice, Chapter 3, Shinjin with a special preface, Chapter 4, Realization, Chapter 5, True Buddha and Land, and Chapter 6, Transformed Buddha and Land with a postscript. The first 5 chapters present the true teaching, while the 6th chapter deals with Pure Land teachings that, at least superficially, appear to be at variance with the true teaching. These later, Shinran explains, as provisional means of Sakyamuni to guide all to the true teaching. Of the first 5 chapters, the 2nd and 3rd, on practice and Shinjin, essentially deal with the nature of practice in the Pure Land way, and the 5th chapter, on the true Buddha and the true Pure Land, may be seen as an elaboration of the subject of realization, presented in the 4th chapter. His full title is A Collection of Passages Revealing the True Teaching, Practice, and Realization of the Pure Land Way. This title is commonly abbreviated Kyogao Shinsho, or Teaching, Practice, Shinjin, and Realization. However, his original title accurately reflects his intentions. A close examination reveals that the work is, in fact, organized basically around 3 pillars. The concepts of practice and Shinjin are both treated under the rubric of practice. Although Shinjin is taken up in a separate chapter, and therefore appears to be a 4th pillar, it is not an additional element of the same character as teaching, practice, and realization. Rather, it is precisely what makes the practice of the Pure Land path true practice, that is, the cause of enlightenment. The core of the chapter on practice is a section treating great practice. At the beginning of the chapter, Shinran states, quote, "Reverently contemplating Amita's directing of virtue for our going forth to the Pure Land, I find that there is great practice, there is great Shinjin," close quote. After mentioning both practice and Shinjin here, he goes on to explain great practice. At the end of the section, he again mentions practice and Shinjin, asserting their inseparability, and then concludes, quote, "These passages are clear testimony revealing the true and real practice," close quote. Shinran's intention is to indicate that, quote, "true and real practice," close quote, includes both practice and Shinjin. This is also clear from Shinran's explanation of Great Shinjin, which concludes, quote, "Hence, whether with regard to practice or to Shinjin, there is nothing whatever that has not been fulfilled through Amida Tathagata's directing of virtue to beings out of the pure vow mind." Shinjin and practice are explained as Amida's directing of virtue. In order to explain that practice is directed to beings through the power of the vow, it is first necessary to clarify, as Shinran states, that, quote, "realization of Shinjin originates in the mind with which the Tathagata selected the vow," close quote. Nowhere does he speak of realizing or attaining great practice alone. Shinjin is attained, but practice is not, for attainment of practice lies in realizing Shinjin. Concerning the one thought moment of Shinjin, Shinran states, quote, "One thought moment is time at its ultimate limit, where the realization of Shinjin takes place," close quote. The thought moment of Shinjin is a temporal expression because it includes the meaning of attainment or realization. In the case of practice, the words, quote, "Namu Amida Butsu," close quote, or the simple act of saying them, are both originally human elements and are not directed to us by Amida. The Buddha uses human language in order to express his own mind. Whether a person's utterance of Namu Amida Butsu arises from self-power, or whether it is great practice directed through other power, depends not on the words themselves, but on the mind that the words express. When a person's utterance of Namo Amida Butsu expresses the Buddha's mind and not the human mind possessed of blind passions and self-willed designs, then for the first time it may be called great practice. One's utterance becomes an expression of the Buddha's mind when one receives the Buddha's mind, that is, realizes Shinjin. In one's realization of Shinjin, or Amida's true and real mind, both practice and Shinjin are realized in one at the same time. Thus, quote, realization of Shinjin originates in the mind, close quote, of the Tathagata. It remains unclear that great practice, quote, to say the name of the Tathagata of unhindered light, close quote, is directed to the practicer as a manifestation of other power. It is not human practice arising from self-power, but great practice directed through other power that is dealt with chiefly in Chapter on Shinjin. Although the explanation of great practice is divided into 2 chapters, probably reflecting Shinran's desire to emphasize that the essence of the practice directed to us through other power lies in realization of Shinjin, from the point of view of content, it is clear that the second is a continuation of the first. Chapter on Shinjin is given a special preface, perhaps to indicate its integral relationship with Chapter on Practice. In it, Shinran indicates that there are those who, lost in the self-power attitude of meditative and non-meditative practice, are ignorant of true Shinjin, and that therefore he will attempt to clarify the matter. Thus, we see his intention of conveying to others the importance of the fact that Shinjin is directed to us through the power of the vow. If one seeks to demonstrate, as Shinran does, that the practice of the Pure Land Way is great practice, the Buddha's practice, it is necessary to explain the nature of Shinjin in order to show that the practice is directed to a person through other power. Although the considerations of practice and Shinjin are undertaken in separate chapters, the work as a whole illuminates the, quote, true teaching, practice, and realization. Practice and Shinjin are both included under practice because they are non-dual. Without Shinjin, there can be no practice.